Deal with Luke and Shiloh. I got my co-host here with me, back from assignment last week. Luke Simons, how are you, bud?
Well, thank you for asking. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Doing good. So we got a treat for him tonight. We're gonna kind of go in a different direction. We're gonna have Ted Garling on. He's a safety man, and he's actually down in from your part of the neck of the woods. And I'm
He's
just gonna
actually my
read a little
neighbor.
bit. He's your neighbor.
He's my neighbor.
I did not know that.
He's my neighbor.
Well, I'm going to read a little bit
Just proves how
on
much
him.
you actually listen to me. No one
Yeah,
listens
no
to me.
kidding.
Why not? That's what I want to know.
I don't know.
It's long, folks. You are in for a treat. You're going to learn something today. Go ahead.
His name is Dr. Ted Garling. He is a doctor in he's a certified safety specialist. He's considered to be one of the most outstanding safety speakers today. He's a motivator, storyteller, and humorist with a doctorate in safety education. Ted is also fluent in Spanish and can deliver keynotes and trainings in English and Spanish, live or virtual. Dr. Ted combines his technical education and certifications with his real-life on-site work experience to bring insight and perspective to your team. In his occupational workplace book entitled Life-Saving Rules, he shares how to keep your employees safe, healthy, and happy. Ted has presented internationally to thousands of employees at all levels across a multitude of industries in English and Spanish. His clientele includes ConocoPhillips, Phillips 66, XTO, ExxonMobil, Marathon, Hess, Halliburton, Schlumberger, Lowe's, Home Depot, Pepsi Cola, UPS, FedEx, John Deere, Caterpillar, etc. Also, many colleges, associations, safety councils is in an effort to improve performance and influence their safety cultures. Dr. Garling knows firsthand the true cost of the true cost of an accident, having worked with his own people and their families through challenging incidents. The stories he tells will help your workers to see the reality of those situations. His expertise will teach your people how to create a safe and efficient work environment. Ted lives on a ranch in Dickinson, North Dakota, with his family and farm animals in the heart of the Bakken oil patch. He is an avid outdoorsman, horse trainer, active in the 4-H, his community, and youth groups. In 2016, Dr. Ted received his Certified Safety Specialist Certificate Safety Professional, the internationally accredited safety certification recognized by safety professionals as the industry's most prestigious credential. And so without further ado, I'm going to bring Dr. Ted on. There he is. How are you, Ted?
Hey, guys. Quite the glowing review there, Shiloh. It's a mouthful, isn't it?
It is.
Absolutely.
So, just to let people know how I met you, a couple of years ago, we were at the same youth clinic. Both our kids are all kind of in that same age group. My daughter is into horses, and all three of Ted's kids are into horses as well. And we were at Elsaby Hassauer's for the Carrie Coon Youth Clinic, and that's where Ted and I got to talking. And we actually have safety in common because I'm also a safety specialist. I don't have near the credentials as Ted does, but we shared that commonality.
Common bond.
Yeah. So,
And
how are you, Ted?
Just so you know, I'm not a safety specialist that you guys we're talking about. Just so you know.
Hey, trial and error, man. That's the best safety specialist out there. You know what not to do because you've done it, right? That's how I've gotten to where I am at.
Yep. So
how are you doing? Or should we call you doctor? My word, this whole
No,
time
Ted.
I did not know. Tell us.
Oh, that's just a recent occurrence during the COVID pandemic. Been chipping away on that online. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. So let's hear about you.
yeah, 42 years old or 42 years young. I got a wife and 2 kids. We did have 3, but one passed away at birth. So we got 2 here living with us, Heston and Holland. We were planning on having 13 kids, but then we ended after 2. We're going to name them after all the implement yard, Massey Ferguson, MacDon, John Deere, and go down the line. But we ended with a Heston and Holland. Great hay equipment. My in-laws are hay farmers in Blackfoot, Idaho. So yeah, we stopped there. So yeah, we live in South Hart, North Dakota. It's just in between Belfield and Dixon. They're off of I-94, just north of the freeway. We bought a little old century farmstead from the Tuies and restored a lot of the barns and Quonsets and whatnot. And yeah, set up a nice little hobby ranch here, and we sure love it. My wife was born in the saddle, uh, as I jokingly say, rode all her life until she met me, and then she gave it up. Up until 3 years ago, we acquired this property and then started collecting horses. Now we're up to 7. And one is
holy
actually
cow.
Luke Simonson's daughter, Liberty's horse named Midnight. She's still alive and kicking. That black little Shetland is sure a treat. Our boys love her.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
So
so
how did
go ahead,
go
Shiloh.
ahead. I was gonna say, so how did you get into safety and if we could start there a little bit, how did you start your career in safety?
Yeah, I always call it my accidental career. Yeah, I never planned on it. I wasn't shooting that way. I was living in Idaho Falls, Blackfoot area, down I-15, and I had a couple of uncles working out at the National Laboratory. It's called INL, out in Arco, Idaho, and it's a big nuclear R&D site, and they have a lot of safety, as you can imagine, there that's needed within that industry. And they were both safety professionals and trainers there for ongoing and new hire orientations with their employees. And they said that was a great industry, great field to be in. So I had already did a bachelor's degree in my 20s, graduated in 2001 from Weber State. Go Wildcats, Ogden, Utah. Shout out. Yeah. Um,
Awesome.
yeah, so I was owned a cell phone accessory shop in Pocatello, Idaho, actually in Chubbuck. If you guys know where the Dodge Circuit Finals Rodeo's at, that's right there in Pocatello. And I had a little shop in the mall where we do cell phone cases and repairs and chargers and whatnot. And while I was doing that, my father-in-law wisely said, "You know what? There's going to be a great collapse at one day." He was a
Mhm.
very wise man. He's like, retail and these items that you sell, these trinkets, aren't going to be a necessity. You need to come and educate yourself, or give yourself more tools in your box to be able to use in case the bottom falls out. Retail. So I listened to him, and they had a program that my uncles recommended at University of Idaho, there in Idaho Falls, the campus, to be able to become a master of education, and the emphasis was in safety, behavior-based safety, and emergency management and planning. So while I was working there at my shop in the mall, a lot of times it's quiet during the day when school's in or whatnot. And I
Mhm.
studied and worked real hard. And within a year and a half, 2 years, I'd graduated with my master's in safety education, essentially. And it took a few years. We didn't quite go and tackle right into that industry, but stars aligned, and what do you know? The big recession bubble hit, and everyone is headed to North Dakota. So everybody's getting laid off out at the site, and I still have my shop. And a gentleman approached me, said, "Hey, I'd like to buy your shop." I said, "Yes, sir." So he wrote me a check, and we did a couple of pit stops along the way, but we ended up in Medora, North Dakota, working for MBI.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, for Missouri Basin Incorporated, for the
Right.
Arthod's great family. So Jim and Jody gave me a shot there in Medora as a new hire trainer. But actually, to be able to get a job in the oil field, you have to have experience. An experience I did not have. But they were hiring tanker truck drivers hand over fist, and you could make
Mhm.
$100,000 driving a truck in North Dakota. I said, well, I don't have a CDL, but my family farm in Idaho, my wife's family,
Mhm.
farms grain and hay. They got some semis, and my dad was delivering for Home Depot on his flatbed with the forklift. So I decided, you know what? I can grind it till I find it, give it the onion.
Right.
So I went and took the test, and lo and behold, passed the online, the portion. But then a guy that passed me with my CDL, he said, "Well, if you're driving North Dakota, I probably wouldn't pass you. But since you're going north, if you're wanting to drive in Idaho, I probably wouldn't pass you. But since you're going to North Dakota, here it is, and get the heck over the border, and please don't come back." So I came up to North Dakota and hung out Williston, out by the Oasis Yard, out by the landfill, for old Running Horse. They're no longer in
Mhm.
business, but
Right.
I drove for Running Horse for about 3 months. So went out on flowback, hauled some fresh water, froze up solid, got stuck in a blizzard for 3 days on a lease road because the company man kicked us off site because they were shutting in all the roads. So they said, "All truckers, get the heck out of here." So I said, "Yes, sir." Hit the roads and then hit a drift about a mile out, and there I camped for 3 days. Luckily, I had a full tank of gas and a laundry hamper full of canned foods, and I cooked my canned foods there on the engine block, right on the
Yeah.
heater, and until the county grader pulled me out. And my dad had done a short stint in North Dakota driving, and he said, uh, probably 3-4 years earlier, "Hey, I can see you teaching these safety classes." And at that time, I was doing my master's of education. I'm like, no way. I would never go to North Dakota. Never. Famous last words, right? Anytime that you
Right.
say
Right.
never. So lo and behold, I talking to him while I'm stuck in the blizzard. He's like, "Ted, you need to get your butt down to Belfield and talk to them boys at MPI. They're going to treat you right." So got unstuck and went down, mixed and mingled there at the reception desk. Got a hold of one of the HR gals, and they said, "Hey, you're quite animated, aren't you? You're quite the character." I think they heard I had a safety education master's, and I said, "You probably fit well. We have a full 1 week training that we put all of our drivers through in a little town called Medora." I said, "Well, shoot, where's that?" "Oh, it's just a little west of here on the interstate." I said, "All right. Well, here's my resume. Here's my info. We'll be in touch." So I drove straight out to Medora. I sat through 2 days of orientation without anyone knowing. I wasn't a new hire or anything. I just sat in the back of the classes and just soaked it all in. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I can do this. I can click it. I
Mm.
can click that PowerPoint. I can just run my mouth. I can tell stories or facilitate discussion, and that's what we did for 2 days. And the instructors finally figured out that I wasn't on the roster. Like, who is this guy putting all this great input into the class and, having great discussion? And lo and behold, they found out that I wasn't even a new hire in their class. I was eating their lunch and kind of felt a little bad, but I was a hungry trucker, with a wife and family living in my in-laws' ranch house back in Idaho on the potato farm. So there we are. They don't do potatoes, but it used to be a potato farm. They do hay and grain. So yeah, long story short, they end up hiring me because they how could they not, right? With
You
the
already ate their
personality
lunch,
like
so they
this.
might as well, right?
Right, right. So they went ahead and hired me, and they gave me a booming salary of $50,000 to teach new hire safety training classes. I was like, holy smokes, I've hit the payload. This is big money. And I was sending videos to my wife at the town my door, and she's a suspense romance writer, and she loves to write books and novels and short stories, and she writes for the local community paper called Heart River Voice. And she fell in love with the place and started googling it and doing her research, and 6 months later, she came up and joined me. During that time, I pulled my camper up. I was living in a bumper pull camper through the winter, one of those nasty early winters that we've all gone through, and froze up all the time. And I was showering, at the C store, and just at the community center. And yeah, end up getting a room in a shared room in a bunkhouse, and I lived there for a bit. I actually squatted in the national park till the rangers kicked me out. So I've had quite the colorful past, making it my way in safety. So it's kind of a fun story that I like to tell. And MBI was great. They put faith in me and got me my oilfield safety certifications through the PEC, Petroleum Education Council, and through the National Safety Council, through North Dakota, that they offer there in Bismarck as a certified instructor for them. And then also through Keller, driving systems that do all the defensive driving and whatnot. So then we're doing the classes for all the operators on Wednesday. We call it Dead Wednesday because you do all the certifications right then and there. They bring in everybody, or we teach it right to them for Hess, ConocoPhillips, Marathon, One Oak, Whiting, all of them. Right then. Well, Whiting wasn't around in that time. It is Kodiak. So I get to know the guys there at ConocoPhillips, and they took a liking to me and offered me a opportunity to be their safety instructor for their classes called Safety Leadership Seminar. It's a 1 day or 2 day seminar that they'd hold. And they offered me a consulting position there, and was there for quite a long while until the COVID oil bust, where oil went to big fat goose eggs. They went ahead and sent me packing. We had just closed on our property here on our home in South Hart, so came out to South Hart to the ranch for about 30 days, and the Dakota Access Pipeline, DAPL, hired me on as their safety guy for a couple of years. And now I'm out for ExxonMobil, or XTO, as their field safety rep, watching their rigs in the Killdeer and on Fort Berthold Reservation as my main gig as a consultant, as a 1099 contractor. So life has been very, very blessed for us. That's the 10-minute short story. We can elongate that into a 3-part novel series if you'd like. The Adventures of the Garling Family.
I'm sure.
So
you said that you go ahead, Luke.
Then is that right? You're an actual employee, so you actually work for several people. Is that correct?
Yes. I'm a 1099 contractor. So the majority of my days, I work on a rotation. So I work 14 days on, 7 days off. And then I'm also a certified instructor. And then I am bootstrapping this keynote speaking. So people will bring me in and be a safety presenter on their safety days, safety stand downs, their annual kickoffs, or if they have a catastrophic event or a fatality, and OSHA sent some regulations for them to be able to get their programs back on track. And people hire me to come in and work with them through those difficult times.
I see.
So, can we back up just a little bit? You said that you worked for the DAPL pipeline. How was
Yes, sir.
that?
Great. I'll
I
tell you
mean, with
what.
everything that.
Yeah, Energy Transfer is an amazing company. They're, I think, second largest in the nation behind Enbridge, and
Mhm,
they are great people to work with and work for. Very environmentally conscious
mhm,
and friendly, and all their safety protocols. And I know they got a big black eye in the national world news cycles and whatnot, but they really do try the best that they can uh, with the stewardship that they've been entrusted.
mhm. So, with a lot of these companies, especially back in the oil boom, take us back a little bit because, like, I even know with the outfits that I was with. I mean, you had people from all over the country, and just like you were saying before, some of them had very little to no experience, and some of them were very experienced. So, what was take us through a day in your training? Let's say for MBI because they did that every week, if I remember
Right.
correctly. It was every
Absolutely.
week or every other
Yep.
week, depending upon. And your classes were some of them were small and some of them were 60 to 90 people, weren't they?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Small class would be 20, full class would be 100. We'd had that auditorium filled.
Right.
They
So
were the largest private employer in North Dakota for a long time running.
what was a day like with mixing all of that, all of the people and um I don't know if attitudes is the right word, but all those different personalities. What was that like for you, and how did you go about training everybody? Because no matter if they were just real green to expert or more experienced, how was that for you?
Yeah, absolutely. They had their curriculum and hour by hour, day by day that they had it planned out. And so we would work through those classes and courses, and we'd identify individuals that would come up and voice their concerns or voice them during
Mhm,
class and whatnot, to be able to help them get the training and to a level of comfortability that they needed to be at. And
mhm,
yeah, there's all spectrums of personalities that would come through those courses. And I really call myself a facilitator because they know everything, and you just
mhm.
really need to revoice a question that's been posed, and someone within the group usually will have the right answer. So if you just readdress it and refocus that question, or you usually can talk out the concern that someone's having.
Yeah. So one of the things that I ran into, especially when the boom first started, so you and I are the same age. So back when the boom started, that was '08 was when I first was on the bore machine and stuff, and I didn't really start driving until 2011, 2012. And I, like you, I started out driving a semi as well, and I had most of my endorsements, but I ended up losing mine because I have a pacemaker defibrillator, and you can't have yeah, and you can't have obviously you can't get a medical card with a defibrillator. So I went into safe truck pushing and dispatching, which kind of turned into safety as well. So that's how I ended up there. To make a long story short, and one thing that I dealt with was a lot of those guys out there were old enough to be my parents or grandparents, and so it was very hard sometimes to get them to listen to what you had to say. Did you experience that as well?
Yeah,
when you first
yeah,
started out there?
absolutely. Yeah,
How'd you
and
deal with
still
that?
to this day, still to this day,
Still to
that's
this
always
day.
a challenge. But you know, it's not what you say; it's how you say it and your approach. So
Yeah.
many times, and you get to really good at reading personalities and emotions and whatnot. And
Yeah.
safety is a high emotional charge for a lot of individuals. You either hate the safety guy or you love the safety guy. There's not a whole lot of in between. And
Right.
I guess with a lot of first responders would be similar cases within law enforcement or any type of enforcement type agency that's out there. But I feel that I'm more or less a coach, an aid, a
Yeah.
help. I'm not a dictator, and that's where
Right.
you'll get down a rabbit hole when you start telling people what to do and how to do it and when to do it. You need to massage that into having them make the choice, and it becomes
Mhm.
their decision. And
Yeah.
that's where you find success within safety. The reason why, not why at that moment, but why down the road, which is ultimately to you can enjoy your passions, your hobbies, your family, your home life, your community, because what we do day in and day out is a means to an end. What is your end game? So I
To go
help them
home. Yep.
refocus into the bigger macro picture than the micro picture of put on
Gotcha.
your safety glass, you know,
So
follow those safety
kind
rules.
that would kind of lead me into my next question then, is because when I sat through some of these trainings down in Bismarck at the Safety Council, and even some of the seminars I went to with their big conference that they have in February, is
Right.
they always stress to try, because you want these guys and gals to come to you. You don't want to, you know, like you were saying, be a dictator. And so I found that quite, interesting, and sitting there with a room full of these safety specialists and listening to how they kind of did that. Can you kind of comment on how you do that? I mean, I know you just kind of were leading into that, but how do you get people to know that, I'm not here to scold you. I want you to come to me with these problems, or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
If there's a
They're not gonna care how much you know until they know how much you care. Right there. Right? And honestly,
Yep.
if you don't care about the guys, the women, the heart, the salt of this nation, they're driving the energy and the heartbeat of our energy force forward, and know and care about them and their families and their hobbies and their interests, then they're not going to care about your silly little rule. They're not going to care about your silly little PPE, because all that is a
No.
hindrance to them if they see short sighted in front of them. But if you help them take off the blinders and share how much you care by engaging in them and being interactive and having that memory to remember the details about these individuals. So the next time that you see them at Cenex or at Walmart or around the community, then you can remember these key points about individuals. And you guys are both great about that. I meet you here or there every now and again. You ask about my kids, about my horses, about my ranch, or about my occupation, and you're great about those details. And people's biggest fans are themselves,
Yeah.
Hmm.
unfortunately or fortunately. So all you got to do is become a fan of them, and they become a fan of you.
It's the truth in the barbershop as well. When, I was in 2005, and that's when safety pushers were starting to become a real 2007 ish, maybe somewhere in there. They really started getting involved in neighbors, some stuff up, and it didn't go over well. I mean, we literally would check it. Just we didn't want them there. And when they became our friends, that's when it all happened. And I was safety pushing. Honestly, I was the critic. I thought it was a waste of time. And that's the way it was. But the first time I cut somebody's finger off on the rig, I was going to places on the rig because everything was coordinated. We had to, everything was in the same place on every rig. So in our training seminars, places on the rig that I had never went to before, and I was mechanical. And at first I thought, Ted, am I being like, is this God? And about middle and half an hour before change out, not even joking, a finger the second time, the other time when they pulled the guy's leg off. Exactly what the safety pusher said. I just started mechanically doing things. I thought to myself, why? How do I know this? It's that stupid. I'm acting out. I was the guy making fun. I was the guy like a school kid. And Ted, it worked. It literally, this is psychology. This is the study of human behavior. And this is all. And after that, I was the biggest guy for it. I understood it exactly. I promoted it. I did. And when I bought in, my whole rig bought in because I really pushed it. So I'm a believer in safety.
Hey, Luke.
Yeah.
Luke, do you got earbuds or something?
Catching
got a guy
every
saying,
third word or so.
Oh,
is that what you're catching?
Yeah.
I hear him just
every
fine,
5 seconds or so on my end.
Hmm.
But I got the heart of the message.
Sorry.
That's all right. Okay.
I hear the majority. It's just a bit choppy on my end.
Oh, I can hear him just fine, so I don't know.
Good.
Brian said that it's not working, so, but it's not. At any rate, so you have a slide presentation here, Ted. Do you want to comment on that? Should I put it up?
Yeah, we can. I came up with a few acronyms just with my time in the field, working face to face, side by side, in the ditches, in the trenches, literally on the front lines with these men and women, with all aspects of oil field life, whether it be wireline drilling, frac, coil, work over rig, roustabouts, excavation, trenching, welders, new construction. That I've come to find out there's a very key thing. There's always a point in any instant where someone could have and should have stopped the job, right? We've all heard, oh, you got stop work authority, but it's true. There's a point where if you would have stopped, if you would have paused, if you would have held up and had a discussion and checked yourself before you wreck yourself, I jokingly say, right? I came up with acronym SAFE because if you follow these 4 steps, you will be safe within your operation, no matter whether it's in the oil field, on the ranch, riding horses, doing construction, within manufacturing, mining. It can apply really simply to anything, even within your own driving. So essentially, it's the word SAFE is the acronym. Very simple to remember, right? SAFE. SAFE. So stop. When something isn't quite right, we all have that inkling, that little small, still voice, or that Jiminy Cricket within us, right? Where something's off. Something's not quite right. Shiloh, when was the last time that you felt something wasn't quite right when you're riding your horse or when you're out on the job? You kind of felt that.
Yeah, there's a lot of times.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can think of one, and for me it's really kind of difficult to be able to listen to my wife and kids, right? Because I'm the man. I'm the
Right.
boss, right? Yeah, I'll
Oh yeah.
listen to coworkers, but my wife or kids will a lot of times will say, "Hey, hold up, Dad, hold up, hubby," right? And I
Mm-hmm.
don't sometimes, or I hesitate, or I just like, I know what the plan is. I got the bigger picture. We're gonna see this through. We're gonna go right on through, and
Mm-hmm.
without fail, I'm eating my words. I'm saying, you know what? I should listen to you, little buddy. I should listen to you, wifey. And without fail, it comes back around and slaps you that, hey, I should have stopped. I should have held up. And
Yep.
they make these little cards in the oil field or within a lot of industries called the stop card. You can pull your stop card. But so many times it's like you're thinking, oh, it's such a big, huge thing to be able to stop the whole job. Sometimes it's just stopping yourself or stopping within your work group, having a hold
Mm-hmm.
point per se, to be able to reanalyze what's not quite
Right.
right, what's speaking to me, what's my intuition saying. We need to listen and slow up. So many times we have a lot of biases. Like a gambler fallacy would be, we've always done it this way, and we haven't had anything go wrong in the past, so it'll always go right in the future. That would be a gambler's fallacy. Or a production bias would be, say, hey, we need to make quota. We need to finish this job by this point, or else
Mm-hmm.
we won't get paid. Or else
Right.
the truck is going to be held up, or else the next job can't progress. So we get stuck in those production uh, biases or the gambler fallacy. Well, we've always done it this way. This is how we done it for 100 years, Ted. That's how we can
Right.
do it again today, right?
Right.
But so many times we need to stop and have that discussion. And that's really where you analyze. The A of safe comes into play, and you stop, you analyze, you really, there's a magnifying glass there on the icon. If you can see that, you analyze those gears. What's not quite meeting up? What's not quite working? What's not jiving? What is that intuition telling me? Let's get more expertise and discussion around that. Let's take a blinders off and have a bigger macro view of what is going on. If needs be, stop for 1 minute, 1 hour, 1 day, or 1 week. Let's not have the
Mm-hmm.
production bias of saying, hey, we need to get this done now. You know what?
Yep.
Oil's been in the ground a million years, can stay in there another week, stay in there
Yep.
another day. It's not worth a finger, like Luke said, or a leg, like he also
Yep.
mentioned, or unfortunately, a life. This
Yep.
summer's been a very catastrophic summer and year for the Bakken in specific, or in the oil fields in general, because during the COVID downturn, all the talent, all the skills workforce has left and has shifted once oil hit zero and everyone got laid off. Now they're trying to rebuild, and the talent, the workforce, the knowledge, the tribal experience is gone, and they're trying to reteach from green. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times people just don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So you
Yep.
got to analyze, bring out that magnifying glass, take off the blinders, look at the bigger picture, bring in other expertise, people with experience to be able to have those discussions on what's not quite right. Uh,
Gotcha.
Luke, can you tell us a story of when something wasn't quite right? When you're working on the rig, or when out on the ranch, or working with your brother up in the Badlands, when you had that intuition.
As I talk, things were happening around us that we didn't understand on the same page. Um, Not necessarily did we stop and get everybody. Going back to the time I cut a guy's finger off, um, still cutting out, guys.
No, you're
A little
sound
bit.
good.
Okay, we had a new guy
He.
on the rig, and um, and we had back in those days, you had the beaver slide, which you'd pull pipes. We had a stopper, if you recall, and that stopper would stick. Something jammed it. We had to kind of kick it. It was exactly a half an hour before changing of crews. And I told that man, I said, back up. I'm going to. And obviously, I wasn't real clear. So I'm going to take some responsibility here. Kicked it. He stuck his hand. He moved 2 feet in and stuck his hand in. And I knew but to just stop the job and just done it. Is that what you're getting at? Saying, Ted?
Yeah, absolutely. And if we would have stopped and analyzed what wasn't quite right or wasn't working, what wasn't functioning on that equipment, then that guy would still have this finger. They don't regrow.
No.
If you stopped and analyzed the situation, then it could have had a different outcome, right? And that's kind of the power of a stop. You don't understand when you do stop something what could have happened.
Mm-hmm.
But in retrospect, hindsight is what? 2020.
20.
Yeah, absolutely. It's clear vision looking back. What you should have, what you could have, what you would have done. But do we want to live with those regrets?
No.
Yeah, so the next acronym and safe letter of the acronym is F. So then you analyze what's not quite right and then you focus in, right? You zone in, you hit your target as we have on the icon, you drill down on that item that needs to be corrected. If you don't have the equipment on site, if you don't have the piece of material or the correct process in place, then we need to hold up and get those things in order to be able to move forward. If not, we don't need to duct tape, baling twine, and zip tie it together to hoblog it along, because sometimes that compounds or dominoes the effect of the original issue, doesn't it? It's not quite intended for the purpose that it was designed for. So we need to focus in on what we need to do to correct the items to be able to move forward. So that's the power of the F. And then engage is the go. And before we go, we do need to stack hands. We need to revise any documentation or any job safety analysis that we have to be able to get all people in accordance to the path that we're going to go. And if someone isn't comfortable or isn't clear with where we're going, then we need to clarify. We need to get everybody in accordance, because everybody's life experiences add up on a job site. You got hundreds of years of experience when you add everybody's time up. So one guy might have seen something, back in the Utica play, or down in the Kennedy, or down in the Permian, or up on the North Slope, or even outside of the oil patch, within, back on their farm or ranch, or back working with their dad doing construction, where they had an experience where they have a feeling that that's not going to quite go as we plan. That's kind of loading a gun that's going to backfire on us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we need to all stack hands and be in accordance of how we're going to move forward. If everybody isn't in on it, then we need to hold up and circle the wagons again.
Gotcha.
Ted, I just read a book here. I'm trying to just. It's called the 80-20 Principle.
Oh, yeah.
And wonderful book. And in one of the chapters, it started to describe company and them interjecting people like you. And what happens is obviously, and I'm just rehashing here for sure, but companies go stagnant, it goes bad. So you have to rethink and reanalyze. Now, just like government employees don't want extra work for them, and they're getting paid salary. So they're not getting paid extra for any. So it actually works backwards. It's counterproductive. Same thing holds true when as the employee, let's say, guy out on the rig, or when I was on the rigs, I did not understand what was happening because I didn't anybody get hurt. So why would it apply to me? So when these guys were view of analyzing a company and initiating, I wasn't on the same page. I did not understand or comprehend. And before long, I understood, but it came at the price of blood. Luckily, we had really good safety pushers that were really pushing. It really was. Another thing that my safety pushers told me on this a little bit, if you would, when someone gets Guillain-Barré, I was in the hospital for 17 days. I was in intensive care for 17 days. I was paralyzed for two years, 7 months. I couldn't move. Ability. That affected me. It affected my family. And if I can just speak from my heart, if I can, when you are careless, it affects more than just you. You will be down in this exactly, and it affects everything. The divorce after someone is hurt bad, like really bad, because it changes you. Ted, could you expound on that? Any experiences you've seen?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been seen time and time again that you'll have a point of injury. And before the point of injury becomes a point of bad habits. So you get into this, what it's called is the normalization of deviance. We normalize deviating from the norm, from the standard quo, from the standard operating procedure. So we did it that once, and it goes back to my phrase of the gambler fallacy, and nothing happened. Hey, try that again. I shaved off a few minutes. That was a little easier. Wasn't quite heavy. Wasn't as difficult. It's hot out here. It's negative 50, 20, 30, 40 mile an hour winds. We just need to get this done. So you normalize deviating from those standard operating procedures of how it should be done safely and correctly. And then you have that habit of deviating. And then after you get in the habit of deviating, you got that 1 in a million chance, like they say in Dumb and Dumber. Well, so you're saying there's a chance. Absolutely. There's a chance that it's not going to go quite right. And bam, what happens? The inevitable happens. And that point of contact occurs. And that catastrophic ripple, that's why I sing like this with my nonverbal to you. You drop that pebble in a stone, pebble in the lake. And those ripples can be measured hundreds of yards, even a mile out within that lake from one stone, from one choice to throw that stone. And it all happens. And then how does that compound? There's a story, a movie that quite a few people have watched called Remember Charlie. The guy was back in New Jersey, and he was working at the refinery, and he decided to, pull a blank without checking pressure, and he ended up getting burned. His arms, his face, and then he tells the compound effect that happened in his life. The financial, they lost their income. He was in the hospital for months or years in the critical burn unit. All the painful skin grafts they had to go through, the scrubbing down on the raw open wounds that he had to suffer. And then he become so bitter and angry to the ones that are closest to us, sometimes receive the greatest wrath of our pain because they're the only ones left. Everyone else is gone, So what happens then? You push those ones closest to you away, and then your financial, the money isn't coming in, so the bills pile up, and that puts a greater strain on the relationship with your spouse and with your children, because you're not being able to do that manly thing of providing. That's what we do. We provide, preside in our homes. We protect our family, and you can't do that. So the psychology of the man really goes down the tube. It goes in that swirling effect down the drain. And with that, so many other compounds of that individual's life just implode, and it deconstructs the human that he once was because of that moment that he chose not to follow the standard operating procedure.
Yeah.
Is that more or less what you're looking for, Luke?
I never understood that until I experienced it. And then in my case, it was, it just, when a man is shattered, that is because a shattered man is a scary man. And I was shattered. I mean, I could pick up, I remember in Chevy blocks. I just did. And I couldn't pick up a fence post, I just overnight. And everything is on it. I mean, I better care of their pickups than they do themselves. Better care of their newsflash. If you don't have yourself, you don't need it. You just don't.
No.
But until people understand the reality of it, and unfortunately, it took blood to understand. And still to this day, I still, no safety glasses. Whoa. Takes you 12 seconds to put on. Come on, what is wrong with you? If you ever have strings on your hoodie, you don't use anything rotating if with baggy clothes on. If your kids were going to do that, what would you say? What would you do? Of course, you would stop.
Well, then you get all the. All three of us jumped in, huh?
So you wrote a book. Could you tell us about you write a book? And I mean, this was let's and also Shiloh, we should also be running a contact a hold of Ted.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really super easy to get a hold of me. It's just tedgarling.com, or lifesavingrulesinaction.com if you want to type all that long one out. And that's the website. And then in the book, I cover the SAFE principle that we covered here tonight. That E is also engage, right? We didn't cover that, but you need to act and engage to be able to finish out the process of the SAFE 4-step process. And then I also cover life-saving rules in action. So the International Oil and Gas Producers, IOGP, they're the big oil and gas club throughout the world, and all the operators and contractors belong to them. They came up with 9 life-saving rules, and I put those just in a simple acronym, easy to remember, which is focused. And I covered those life-saving rules and how to put them into action. Case studies that I've experienced or I've heard firsthand from individuals and in interviews and through firsthand experiences on how people can become more safe through their day-to-day interactions, just not in the oil field like we've talked about a lot
Mhm.
tonight, but out on the ranch, while they're boating, while they're hunting, while we're horseback riding, while we're driving our vehicles, the most dangerous activity, workplace or leisure activities is driving, where the most deaths occur, right? So I
Right.
really dive into all those principles and concepts there. The book isn't live for sale quite yet. We're just doing some final edits and whatnot, but it'll be available for pre-sale on Amazon here shortly. And I'll let you guys know, so you can post it on your website to let your viewers know tonight when that's ready.
That'd
And
be great.
yeah, we just want to make sure that everything's just perfect in there, so we don't have to make too many revisions in the future. And it's just a great. I'm a man of parable. The greatest man on earth, taught by parable, right? And that's how people learn best, is through stories of experiences. And unfortunately, that's how people have to learn, is through experience of themselves or from others. So I share those very uh, applicable stories to be able to bring home the point of why we do what we do, so you can go home safe to your family, to your loved ones, to your community,
Hmm.
uh, to do those things that we love.
Gotcha. Well, this has been really interesting for me, and I'm glad that you were able to be on tonight. Um, I'm trying to put this other one up here. I'm sorry. Just give me a second.
The book
There we go.
you were talking about the book, Ted, of so you wouldn't have to make any reforms. As Hank the Cowdog once said, "Perfect is usually good enough."
All right. All right. So I'm
So,
available for keynote speeches and whatnot, and that's really where I see a lot of my future time going, is providing keynote addresses and speeches for safety stand downs and annual or quarterly safety meetings and whatnot, and then to be able to also offer a weekly safety tele talk offered virtually that can be delivered to their companies. So it helps meet those OSHA obligations, yet also keep your workers engaged on a weekly basis. Then quarterly, get all your leadership teams on a call on Zoom, so we can help them lead from the front, not be a boss from the back and push it. They need to lead from the front, like Luke was saying. Once he was bought in, his crew was bought in, because
right.
there's no greater safety guy than the supervisor.
Yep.
I just call my safety self a safety coach, right? I just
Right.
consult, I just coach, I just help, inspire, motivate. But the true safety pros out there are the people that lead the crews, that lead the teams, the guys on the front lines in the ditches day in and day out, freezing their butts off, sweating their guts out, and earning it with their blood, sweat, and tears, moving the backbone of America forward. Those
Yep.
are the guys that really matter.
Yep.
Right?
I agree.
Are you a or Dave? Ted, are you a Dave Ramsey fan by chance?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. What does he
Okay.
always say? He's like, better than he deserve,
Yeah.
offering
Um,
wisdom with my teeth in.
Ramsey, some of the things you're saying kind of reminds me of him a little bit. He says, Christmas comes every single time of the year. So when people say they're broke for Christmas, we really know you're just a horrible manager of money,
Hmm.
and that's why you weren't able to buy what you wanted to for the people you love, because you're a horrible manager of your money. And people don't want to hear the truth. You have to put, lipstick on a pig, and you have to put a lot. Yeah. Um, but the truth is you're just a horrible manager. In America, you can afford to buy your loved ones a gift. You don't have to go extravagant. Same thing holds true. You can eliminate butcher Bob used to always tell me. I'd always argue with him. You can eliminate risk. And what you said earlier, it starts from management. It has to start from, and it only takes one person to buy in. It becomes logic. It's just because there's a difference between common sense and just a major difference. And when you that I'm going to be safe, I'm going to be safe. Part of your culture, it becomes who you are, the very essence of who you are. And it's a bad reputation, and sometimes it should. But on the same token, I mean, we're talking about people's lives and a culture of you know what. At the end of the day, we want everyone to go home in one piece, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And when I was on the rigs, of course, it was new. Safety was a new concept. I mean, the rigs was like the wild west. Things sometimes it was like our bosses weren't listening, like they didn't want to hear, and they asked us to walk around the rig and find something not safe. Well, Ted, and I was thinking to myself, just any cowboy, any farm kid would here's the ground rod sitting here like this, that tall, hazards everywhere. So if you fall on that, and let's say but anywhere, this is a bad thing. So I remember writing a thing. Actually, this could really hurt somebody. Ground rods. And my manager saying, "Why would you write something stupid like that?" He said, "Do something about this." That's what they said. And then later on, 2 years later, they made nice big plastic caps to go over the top of those. Obviously, someone probably fell on one. So how do you create a culture in a company take it serious? Like how does that work? Like, what is the ground? What is of safety? Because I'm asking as a used to be employee. I don't know how would Dr. Ted get a company in pushing safety? How do you do that? How do you create that?
So we got to meet in the middle, right? As you say, someone had to bleed to be able to make that change. Right? OSHA rules or laws are written in blood. Why is that? That sounds morbid. Well, someone had to bleed to write that rule. So companies so many times are ran by shareholders. The shareholders are all about the almighty do re mi, right? And that the safety culture directly affects the bottom line in lost time incidents, in lawsuits, in injuries, in hospital bills. It all adds up, and that gets cut out of that bottom line. So for them to be able to increase profitability within the company from the top down, they need to start listening from the bottom up and going to guys like you who are in the field day in and day out working around these hazards and asking them and actually listening and doing. You see it, you own it, you stop and forget about it. No, you see it, you own it, take action.
Yep.
The quickest way to destroy a safety culture is inactivity. You hear it, you disregard it, or you shame them like you did. And unfortunately, that was the way. And that is the way within some companies. And you just fake it till you make it, and you just burrow your shoulders and barrel through. The other guys are doing it, so why do you gotta cause a rift? So what we need to do is ask for the input from the bottom up and the top needs to come down, and we need to meet in the middle on a common grounds. And within that, committees can be formed and organized to be able to get that input, and then have the top down supply the money, because it does cost money to correct those items. Yet in the end, it'll improve productivity and efficiency for the shareholders.
Yeah, that was one thing that I learned too, when especially I don't remember what his name was, but he was a speaker at the safety council at the conference, and one thing that he said was back when the boom kind of was tapering off, some of the first people to go were the safety people. But then if you're worth your salt, they said, you would prove to them why keeping the safety people on was a good idea. And how you did that was put pen to paper, and this is what an accident is
Quantify
going to
it.
cost you. Yep. This is what this is going to cost you. Not just, just the accident itself, but your insurances, your WSI, your, when you get sued,
TRIR,
if
your
you get
total
sued.
recordable incident rate, which is your safety
Yep.
score. And now companies and contractors cannot get hired if their incident rate is too high, because they're too much of a liability to the company. So now your safety credit score will inhibit you from bidding on contracts or maintaining
Correct.
contracts. You'll get ran off if your incident
Yep.
rate is too high for these
Yep.
operators.
Yep.
And that doesn't
So,
even come into effect how much we care about the individual and their family, their wives, their kids, their community, and how that ripples down like it did in Luke's life.
yep. So, well, Ted, I appreciate your time. Luke, did you have anything else?
I actually am just fascinated by this whole thing. I was right here listening. Ted, I could talk to you all day long.
Yeah.
This is really, really interesting. I'm really fascinated by it. And understands the culture of what you're speaking of. And because I was there, and it's so weird. I remember my dad showing up. I was old. I remember my dad packed his stuff up, and I said, "Dad, where are you going?" He goes, "I'm starting another." We're not done here. And he goes, "Well, you got this, son. You got this job, son." I was 14, and I started shingling roofs by myself. My brother and I do another job. When I remember my dad showing up to the job sites, "Where's those toll holds? Get high that ladder up. What are you doing?" And Ted, I couldn't believe it. Like, I was like, "Oh, this is going to fall off this roof. I'm not going to things there. This is." But then when I had 28 employees at one time. Getting out of my vehicle, and why isn't this ladder tied on? Where are you? And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I turn into my dad, because experience will do that to you. Exactly.
And you care about
soon
them.
you love.
I care about them and their families.
Absolutely. It wasn't even that. It's me. I'm coming. Like, I care about you, you ding dong. Do this right, or go home.
Yes. And sometimes you gotta use that vernacular for them to be able to hear you. You use nice talk, they don't quite comprehend. So you need to speak in the language that they understand. Speaking of which, I am fluent in Spanish, and that's a lot of my major success I've had here in the Bakken, is working with the Spanish crews, roustabouts, rig hands, because yo hablo español, yo puedo hablar con ellos en el idioma que ellos entienden. I speak with them in their language that they understand, and then they buy in.
Yeah.
Sure. So again, how do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, my number's there on the bottom of the card, and we can repost that on the show notes. but tedgarling.com, and then I have an number, which is 701-503-4099. And then we can, just correspond from there. I'd love to come out to your next safety stand down or keynote address for your conference or convention, and be able to help you guys where you're at and just level up one notch. We're not talking about massive catastrophic jumps. If you just level up one notch, one ladder, eventually we'll get to the top of that roof. We'll get it shingled, Luke Simons.
That's a good way of saying it. So you just start out small. What can we do today is what you're saying. Implement to that,
absolutely.
and you train in foremans and that's what you do, or do you basically work with
whatever level is required? We can come in and do analysis and see where their gaps are, identify those missing steps, and be able to help create a bridge, and then eventually fill in the gap so there's no impedance to your safety journey. Cheesy, isn't it?
Gotcha. Well, I really enjoyed this evening. We're gonna have to have you on again, Ted, once you release your book, and I know that we're talking about doing some other things as well. So you'll definitely have to
come
come
on
on
down
again.
to the ranch, both of you guys. Have some root beers
That'd be
and
fun.
grill some steaks and enjoy the family.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, that'll be great.
That would be really awesome.
Bet.
Well, thank you for coming on tonight.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you guys. I sure appreciate
time very
it.
much. You bet.
Have a safe one.
So, you too.
You as well. Thank you, Ted. Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
What an interesting fellow.
Yeah, he's great. I met him and his family a couple of years ago, and we started talking horses, and then he asked me what we did, and we're kind of just talking about our past and the companies and different things that we've been through, and they've been a great friend ever since. So we talked throughout the year a couple times or whatever. And actually, the reason why I asked him to be on was he sent us that video, his YouTube video of his speaking and his new book coming out and that. And so I thought, wow, we really need to have him on, because that's definitely pretty cool. And then to listen to him talk tonight, like, I didn't know any of how he got up here, or what he told us tonight about MBI going to their meetings and eating lunch. And so, but a lot of people, they never understood that unless you were here to see stuff like that. I mean, that's literally what it took sometimes, was to just show up, and if you're worth your salt, they were gonna give you a try, and some of them made it and some of them didn't. So that's really great.
It's funny you would say that. When I called Neighbors Drilling and I asked them, I needed a job, and I knew a lot of people from the barbershop, and they told me, yeah, just apply. But I was supposed to name drop them when I was talking to the secretary. The way that worked out is they told me I was, I think, 87 on the list of people that they would call in that order. Okay, that was on a Tuesday. I'll call you Thursday. And she goes,
I heard this.
I heard you. And I called her back. She didn't recognize me. And I said, okay. She told me the exact same number. She goes, 389. And I said, well, I'll call you on Tuesday. She goes, so I did this for, I think, 3 weeks. I called twice a week to the same company. And she would answer, Luke, you're still 389. And this guy gives me a call. It was like at 11 o'clock at night. And I mean, he's using pirate language. And he's like, are you Luke Simons? I had a worthless blankety blank. You should not show up You're hired. Sir, I thought I was 300. He goes, yeah, I called the secretary and off my back, he won't leave me alone. And he keeps calling every this time. And you know
Yeah.
what? That's what it took. You have to bully. You have to.
Persistence pays off. Yep.
When Ted was talking, he made that story, and in a lot of his seminars, he tells a story of this guy. He shows up to work. Guys at work, they're building a house. They said, hey, you new guy. He goes, yeah. Who told me to come? And he worked really good. Well, then the foreman shows up. And the foreman, who's the new guy? They're like, well, didn't you know? He's like, no, I didn't know. So he walked, hey, what's up? He goes, yeah, they told me to show up. Well, he's working 3 or 4 top hand. Well, the boss comes in, the owner, and he's like, hey, who's the new? Well, we thought you sent him. So they all walked over. Hey, he goes, yeah, they told me to show my wife and kids. I need a job. They said, well, you're hired. It is. I mean,
That's
opportunity. The door to success has a label on it, and it says, that's what it says. It says push. And sometimes you got to push. Not sometimes.
right.
You got to find the opportunities. A lot of people miss opportunity because it looks like work. And it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, Shiloh, what a great guest. I'm glad you had him on. And I've known that.
Yeah, it was good to have him on. I was excited to when he sent me that, and because again I had no clue on just exactly where he came from and stuff, but that is a really good family. In fact, we're gonna hold a seminar down there we're gonna put something together for the youth. I'm gonna do a clinic down there, I think, or some kind of horsemanship deal down there in their barn. Their place is beautiful. I don't know if you've ever been there before, but they've got a really nice, beautiful ranch. Elsevie's been down there a couple times and done some stuff. So, but yeah, they're great people, and he's awesome.
Their horses are spoiled. Let me tell you, that's all there is to it.
Well,
spoiled.
There's one of them. Yeah, they are. They're and by spoiled we mean very well taken care of. One of them actually came up from here. The guy that I was working for, Gene Vandenberg, they bought one of their reiners a few years back. So, and that's actually how we got to talking, because I had some of the horses that I was riding for Gene there, and he asked me where I got it, where the story on it. I said, well, he's actually my boss is Gene Vandenberg's, and so that's kind of what started our conversation. We've been friends ever since. So with that though, Luke, I want to change gears a little bit. I have a few announcements to make for the show. Obviously, the Dr. Frank deal, he is coming to North Dakota. We've got him. Actually, I'm working on 4 different spots now. On Saturday the 11th, it's in the works that he will be in Williston in the morning. We're going to start that about 10 o'clock if it all works out. And then that afternoon / early evening, we will be in Dickinson. And there will be that seminar there, as well as a informational meeting on the Sons of Liberty, on the chapter that we're trying to start down there. And then Sunday, the 12th, February 12th, we will be at the Tumbleweed in Lincoln, North Dakota, which is just outside of Bismarck. 1 o'clock at the Tumbleweed. We will have another seminar there with Dr. Frank, as well as an informal meeting in about the Sons of Liberty and getting that chapter started and going there as well. And then on Monday the 13th, it's going to be jam-packed. We are actually going to be at the Capitol at noon. We're going to hold press conference there at the Capitol, and Senator Jeff Magrum is helping us get that all completed, but it'll be at noon there. And then from the Capitol, we will be leaving to go to Minot that evening, and we will have the seminar there with the Minot chapter of Sons of Liberty. And that is going to be at 6 o'clock in Minot. And I do believe it's at Representative Holverson's church. I'll have to get the name of that church again. I had it written down, but I don't have it here.
It's a Lutheran church.
Yeah. So that is what's happening with Dr. Frank. And then in 2 weeks here on the show, we are going to have Lori Hines from No Apologies on back. And so we're
What day is that?
That will be not the 5th, but I think it's Thursday the 12th. That's 2 weeks from today.
So Thursday the 12th. It's January the 12th.
Correct.
What a wonderful.
So
she is just an absolute and doing a great job too. I'm gonna ask her. I'm just gonna tell you right now. I'm gonna ask her how it is to work with Perry Schaefer. I have heard we are going to have fun. I'm going to have fun until my daddy takes. So, well,
yep. So those are the announcements
that we need to know about.
No, when Dr. Frank is here, though, he is actually before we do our press conference in at the Capitol, he's actually going to have an interview with Lori Hines from No Apologies. And I do believe the ladies of Another View are also going to have him on too. We'll tape those interviews before our conference, our press conference. So at any rate, so that's what's coming up.
Sounds
here in the next couple of weeks. So
well, I'm going to call her a night. Thank you. Thank you, Ted, again for coming onto the show. And Guy, if I didn't love doing what I was doing, that would be so much fun. It would be so much fun. So, all right. Well, thank you for joining us, folks. With that, I am signing off.
Happy trails.
Trails.